Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another video analysis from the 2014 League of Legends World Championships. For this game, we have Samsung White versus Dark Passage. It's their second match in Group Stage A. Once again, this is a video analysis and not a shoutcast. I will be assuming that you at least know the outcome or have watched the video or don't care, as there will be spoilers throughout the match. I will be looking primarily towards macro levels of play and strategy rather than micro level strategy, with an emphasis on team compositions and how teams execute their win conditions. So, let's go ahead and get into picks and bans. Fairly standard start. Samsung White once again banning out Italy. They just don't want to deal with it, as it's one of Fabulous best champions, and it really cuts out a certain type of strategy of play. Lucian is also banned, being strong for Holy Phoenix, and Thresh, as he's just generically good. Dark Passage's side, Tristana, Yasuo, Zilean, we see them coming out again, keeping Tristana away from Imp, Yasuo out of Pawn's hands, and Zilean, as the Korean teams are really strong on him. And he's just a standard ban throughout Worlds. We see Samsung White, they're grabbing Alistar first. They left up Maokai, Ryze, Alistar. Every top laner is pretty open except for Italy. With Alistar not being banned, they pick him up. And this time we get to see Looper playing Alistar and Fabulous playing Ryze. That's a reverse matchup from their last game. We also see Lee Sin being picked up by Dark Passage. This time around they left open a lot of strong picks, and so they get Ryze Lee Sin as opposed to Samsung White getting it this time around, as they did last time. We see Samsung White picking up Kha'Zix, standard jungle matchups, and we see Corki, and this is one of the first times we see Corki in the Worlds. He gets more and more popular over the course of it. He's great lane bully, a very strong mid-game spike, able to provide wave clear when a team is lacking it, with the right jungler and the right jungler top laner and support. You can essentially have Corki defend a 3v5 situation on turrets while split pushes go off to the sides, and we'll see that in several games throughout Worlds. Dark Passage respond by picking up Braum and Ezreal. They're really going for fight potential. Braum Ezreal is actually pretty decently strong, since Ezreal's Q will proc Braum's passive, and they can easily get all 4 stacks with Ezreal using Mystic Shot, Arcane Shift, I think it is, his Blink, and then auto attacks, be able to stay in range to get all of the procs off and hit the passive. They really should be looking to use the pressure at level 1, though Corki is a lane bully, especially with Janna, as they picked up their final pickup. If they can get this done, they can really get some good hits on. And we'll see the opportunity for this early on in the match, but Dark Passage do not quite go for it. We'll see some dysenergy between their support and ADC, but we'll get to that later. Samsung White now pick up Zed and pick up Janna. They're good, solid supports. Janna deals okay against Braum. She can harass well with her auto attacks, as well as provide protection for her ADC when they try and go in. Generally, just an even support matchup, even ADC matchup. Zed is real big in Worlds, high mobility assassin champion. I don't particularly like him against certain compositions. In this, he's fine. We see Dark Passage have picked up Fizz in response, so the mid lane is going to be extremely volatile. So quickly, I'm going to go over team strategies, and then move into lane matchups throughout the video. Dark Patches have crafted a team that has 2 really high scaling champions. Ryze and Fizz will highly outscale Alistar and Zed in the late game, while still being fairly relevant in the mid game, although they will be slightly behind. As long as Dark Patches can stay even on CS, not get bullied out of lanes, not give up too much kills, then Ryze and Fizz should be able to stay relevant in the mid game and then around the 30, 35, 40 minute mark, scale into their late game hyper carry potential. Zed really only does his damage to one target and then he's kind of done, whereas Fizz can blow up one target and still provide chaos and lots of damage throughout the fight. He's much more mobile than Zed in the extended fights, whereas Zed is more mobile in the burst situations with his double shadows. So Dark Passage strategy is survive the lanes, don't give up too much kills, don't lose out on CS, don't give up objectives through the mid game. Make sure to trade them even if you have to completely give up one to take another. And, sacrifice your bot turret, take top turret. Let mid go, take bottom. Whatever. Do something so that you can keep the gold fairly even, because you have to be able to survive until the late game, where Fizz and Ryze will really dominate. You have some good potential with this, as Ezreal provides some mid-game power, Lee Sin provides playmaking potential with his ultimate, and Braum does provide some safety. Dark Passage can fight for stuff like dragons. They'll have to be careful, as Samsung White's team is more mid-game oriented, but it does not mean that Dark Passage are out of the mid-game fight. So as long as they can hold on, come 35-40 minute mark, Dark Passage should start gaining momentum and be moving towards the win. Their goal, make sure you don't lose the game by then. And against Samsung White, it's a little rough. Samsung White's the better team, and since Dark Passage's team doesn't want to make plays, they don't really come together until 30 minutes. It's going to be hard not to fall apart against Samsung White. But not impossible. They can also go for some skirmish fights. They have to be careful. Alistar's really strong, Kha'Zix and Zed. But Lee Sin, Ryze, and Fizz are also strong. So right here, this is a problem. Ezreal could have gotten that last hit. He could have kept walking forward after his attack, gone for another Q, got the stun onto Corki, dealt more damage. Really could have put DP in the position to be ahead, forced Corki to use his pot. DP gets the advantage. Instead, they're really not fighting. Braum wants to fight, Ezreal doesn't. The problem with this is Ezreal, Braum really needed to take the fight from level 1 and get that level 2 advantage. However, now Corki and Janna are going to get the level 2 advantage. Same thing in middle. Fizz, the first person to level 2 since it's a melee matchup. Very volatile. First person to 2 gets the huge advantage by going all in. You just saw how hard Fizz got chunked. See, bot lane, Corki, Janna are able to harass. DP, Dark Passage didn't keep up the pressure from level 1, and now they're behind level 2. This will continue throughout the rest of the game. Same thing in the mid. Being behind, now he's in trouble. Lucky for him, though, mid lane is short, so it's not as bad. Up top, we do see Ryze winning the CS lead, and Kha'Zix and Lee Sin are just kind of chilling out. So, on to Samsung White. Samsung White's overall team strategy is a real mid-game power spike. Around levels 8 to 9 for mid lane, 6s, first items. They want to group together and start taking dragons, start taking objectives, look for skirmish fights in the jungle and whatnot. Their team is much stronger in the mid game, especially when Ryze is hitting his mana point, and Fizz does not have his Zhonya's or his Lich Bane, whichever one he has to get both to be really prevalent against Zed. So they want to get to this point where around the second dragons, the second and third buff spawns, and start pressuring Dark Passage. Find the small skirmishes, find the 5v5 fights, use Corki for his poke, for his extreme pressure, and just start taking objectives and a lead from there. Once Corki hits his Trinity Force, Samsung White should really be looking for that skirmish potential, or for that 5v5s. Up top, we see Ryze getting caught out by the Flash Headbutt Pulverize. Get back to that in a second. But so Samsung White, at the mid games, between levels 6 through 11, they really need to generate a gold lead. If they can generate a gold lead, then they keep Dark Passage from being able to turn into their hyper carry status. Ryze and Fizz will not be able to have the impact that they need until even later in the game, 40-45 minute mark. So any lead Samsung White is able to generate pushes back the death clock essentially, and gives them much more time to win and take over the game. So that's Samsung White's strategy. Expect to see them going for those jungle objectives, either the second or third buffs, and taking out first, second, third dragons with their mid-game power. So going back up to top lane, Ryze against Alistar, we saw before, we see it again. He's definitely winning this match. He did the one thing he really shouldn't have done. He got too close to the tower. In this situation, anytime you're fighting Alistar, you really should give up pressure when he's under the turret. Let it go, because one bad flash pulverized if the jungler's there, as we saw, and you just lost your advantage. And that's exactly what happened. And now his flash is down. We get Kha'Zix coming in to deal damage. Ryze can't fight back, or else he would get caught by Alistar. So it's a lot of free damage right there. And we see it's a great response by Lee Sin. Ryze gets in there, and it's so close. He just barely gets over. Almost has it. But anyways, so if you play Alistar against Alistar up top, make sure not to get into flash pulverized range. I know it's such a new thing. It's a beginner thing to get caught by, but even when you're at a professional level, you still, are subject to it. Here we see Janna's doing a great job of blocking for that stun, not letting them hit it. It's very close. Very well played by Samsung White. Here we see their individual skill outshining Dark Passage. Say if Ezreal had flashed for the last auto hit onto Corki for the passive, or had just ignored Janna and ran past for him, it could have turned out differently. Not really know who's to say, but it was good play by Samsung White to protect Corki, and now they end up with a lead in the lane. So, right now, taking stock of the match, Zed goes first item, Hex Drinker. This is great idea to pick up in this match. You got magic damage from Ezreal with his ultimate. You got Braum passive, Ryze, and especially Fizz. Hex Drinker is great against AP assassins, as it normally provides just enough to survive the burst combo, so that you can either fight back or get out. In this case, with Zed, it'll be great against Fizz. It'll provide him just a really good safety window for him to be able to fight. And being ahead, being so far ahead as he is, it kind of shuts down Fizz's ability to kill him. Here we see power of Alistar, just tanking turrets. The EP do respond, and they go down and take first dragon. So, good response by them. They know that the bot lane is back. They've seen the jungler up top. Easy dragon for them. Decent trade. Ryze should be looking to get some more wards up, though, as he's already been picked on. It just might be too late. Even with the 2 deaths, he's still ahead on CS. Going into the mid lane matchup, Fizz versus Zed. It's a very volatile one, and this happens anytime you have 2 melee mid assassins. The level 1 is always a little testy. You never know if somebody's going to try an all-in or not. Most likely not. In this matchup, Zed gets his poke, just throws out his Qs. Fizz can't fight back unless he wants to draw creep aggro, so Zed has the advantage. Then, when the second wave comes in, he should be able to hit level 2 first, as he has his Q for the damage, and then the auto attack passive with the low HP creep. So he hits the level 2, as we saw before, and then he just all-ins. Fizz has to back off and wait. It's tough. If Fizz is able to get level 2 first, he can do the same thing. He can put on his skills, go attack Zed, and pull the advantage. So, very volatile. Have to respect who's going to win the level. Have to decide whether or not you want to get that level 2 first, or if you're going to let it go. It's a decision that generally has to be made previously to, even the wave spawning. You have to have a plan for it. Once level, say, 4 or 5 comes into play, it's still in Zed's advantage because he can get off the free poke, the free harass with his Q and his E, whereas Fizz has to deal auto attack damage to Zed and draws creep aggro. So in the all-in and the trades, it kind of still leaves the advantage on Zed's side. Once level 6 comes into play, though, it really becomes a big game of chicken. Whoever uses their ult first kind of doesn't necessarily lose, but almost loses. If Fizz ults Zed, then Zed will wait until Chum the Waters is about to hit, and then uses his ultimate to dodge it, and goes on to Fizz. Whereas when Zed uses his ultimate on Fizz, Fizz can use his pole hop to stop the damage at the end of it. Playful Trickster will prevent him from getting hurt by Zed's death mark. So they both have ways to escape each other's ultimates. If Fizz ever uses his pole hop in lane, Zed has the opportunity to go use his ultimate for all in. If Zed ever uses his ultimate, Fizz has the opportunity to go all in as well. So it tends to be a big game of chicken. In this instance, it's lucky for Zed that Fizz went after Kha'Zix. Zed was able to come in and get the kill, creating his advantage even more. In the bot lane, we are really seeing the bullying power of Corki. Since Dark Passage didn't take this fight early in the level 1s and 2s, they've been stuck on the back foot ever since then. It's a 50 CS advantage on bottom, and with the 2v2 so even, it's essentially the game. Like we see, Corki's level 7, Janna 6, Braum and Ezreal aren't even level 6 yet. There's no ability for them to fight. They have to go into the lane when Samsung White's duo is not there to try and get EXP. Be very safe. They just fell behind too early. They should have gone harder at the level 1 and level 2 and had a little bit more coordination. As we saw, they didn't quite knock the passives out in the first level 1 with Corki and Janna. As it is, they're in a lot of trouble now since Corki has got his missiles. They can poke Dark Passage's duo to no end. Lots of damage coming out. The only hope Dark Passage has in the bot lane is kind of gone because of item advantage and level advantage. However, if they can get 3 stacks of the passive or poke the passive onto Corki, Braum can use his ultimate, Ezreal can get his as well. Here we see Fizz almost getting the kill onto Kha'Zix, but Janna comes in to save. It was good play by Fizz, good catches, just was in the 2v1 situation. Lee Sin wasn't quite in range to help him against Kha'Zix. Zed got there first, and so they were able to take out Fizz. Janna came up because the bot lane is in superior control, that Janna can rotate. Corki can essentially play a 2v1 if he wants at this point. So Samsung White just have the control to roam and bring more people quicker. Janna responded faster to that than Dark Passage were able to. Here we see Alistar being a bully. He's got his Sheen, he's got his Phage. Rise got behind Rise, so now he's going to kill him. It's positioning, there's not enough wards for Dark Passage. Rise has none up. I guess they've been cleared. Well, he has the one up, but they've been cleared on the river. We see the 2 pinks. Let's see. Looking at items, Fizz is going for his Sheen first, and I would almost always suggest Fizz to go Sheen first, even against someone like Zed, because it's against Zed, it's a skill matchup, and you can get away with not buying Seeker's Arm Guard, whereas the Sheen is going to help you kill people in other lanes with the roaming and whatnot. For now, we see Lee Sin missed his Q, he got there late. Zed is in range. Janna makes a great save with her shield and ultimate. For the rest of this match, it's really just the Samsung White show. They've gotten ahead, they have the heavy mid-game team, and they're using it properly. They're bullying DP around. They're constantly looking for fights in the jungle, in lanes, at objectives. They're being their bully. Right now, Rise has to scale up. Fizz is really behind and needs to get at least to his Zhonya's and Lichbane before he can fight Zed properly. But he's hasn't even completed one of them. He's halfway. He's kind of halfway to both. It's going to take another 10 minutes before he becomes truly relevant against Zed. Dark Passage's bot lane is really behind in levels, gold, everything. Half the CS, 70 CS behind. This game has really just been about Samsung White outplaying Dark Passage individually in every single lane. So once again, we see another sort of solo queue game where it's about player skill rather than team strategies and whatnot. We do see more of a strategy team composition coming from Samsung White, as this time around it was about the mid-game power spike. Now that they have it, they're using it to great degree. See them diving into turrets, getting tons of damage with Corki Q and missiles provides enough damage that Zed is able to dive in, get his kills, get out, or Kha'Zix is able to dive in, get his resets, and get out. The only one on Dark Passage really doing well has been Rise. He's been keeping up in his CS, but he's also died the most. He got picked on early. He didn't have the wards. He did the couple things he needed not. He did the few things he needed to not do, like get knocked into turrets, get caught behind by Kha'Zix, and it's just lost him the lane. Really, though, the story of this game is mid and bottom. Corki is so strong compared to Ezreal. We can see it right here with the final swing. I guess we'll talk a little bit about Kha'Zix Lee Sin. This is a matchup we see almost all the games. It's the standard matchup in Worlds for the junglers. And it's really just a farm matchup for the most part. Lee Sin and Kha'Zix can both farm essentially the same. Lee Sin has a bit more early game power when it comes to ganks, and he should look to be able to get them. However, in the 2v2 and ganks, it's more about the lane partner than it is about Kha'Zix or Lee Sin and who comes out on top. Kha'Zix scales harder than Lee Sin, doesn't have as much playmaking ability. Lee Sin has playmaking ability throughout the entire game with what we know as the insect, the Q to ward dash to knockback kick, whereas Kha'Zix actually can provide real strong damage. He gets the resets. He's a threat outside of his ability to make plays. He's the threat from damage. So in that matchup, it's just about farming and getting to what your team needs. Does your team need you to do sight stone? Does your team need you to do playmaking with Lee Sin? Do they need you to snowball a lane with early ganks? Do they need you to get as Kha'Zix to the point where you poke well? You know, are you there to provide protection, peel, or are you a frontliner? Here we see Samsung White. Alistar goes in, pops his ultimate. Samsung White's just so far ahead that nothing really matters about DP at this point, unfortunately. So what could DP have done? Dark Passage, they could have crafted a team that had, once again, they could have crafted a team with a purpose. Their team, it takes too long to come into their own, and it's really about the hyperscaling individual power of Fizz and Rise rather than an actual team composition. There was nothing to make sure that they can get into that late game. Say if they had Corki, they could have had good wave clear to make up for the lack of it on Fizz. Nami would have provided great disengage for the team when Alistar tries to go in. However, in the end, they still have crafted a 30-35 minute team with no way to get there. So, doing so against Samsung White is shown to be not profitable, as we can see. As Samsung White knows how to play, knows how to bully, you have to be able to keep up with them from the start. if Dark Passage in the bot lane had really gone hard against Corki, they probably could have pushed him out early, or at least got him low. They had to fight that bot lane, and they had to fight it hard. However, they let it go. Ezreal didn't seem to want to fight when Braum got his Qs off, and it turned into Corki Janna ruling the bot lane. In the mid, Fizz got a little too low early on at the level 2 with letting Zed go, and then unfortunately later on when he tried to make some kills, they didn't work out and Zed got the kills onto him. So aside from just playing individually better, probably having Corki in their team lineup would have been good. But Corki was picked first, so there was not much they could do about that. Also, if they wanted to, they could have traded out Fizz for somebody who can provide longer duration, say Syndra, Orianna, maybe even Ziggs, who can keep this game going so that Ryze can scale up, so that there can try and be outplays made by Ezreal, Braum, and whatnot. The difference we do see from Samsung White in this game, though, than some of their others, is that they're very definitive in their win. They're not screwing around this time. They're not drawing it out. They go, 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 and take the win hard. Even though it is just a bunch of skirmishes and kind of solo queue stuff, they're not delaying. So, if you take anything from this game, I guess it's that Samsung White are good. But also, whenever you fight a superior team, and you know you are, you should go into it with an overall team strategy. You've got to try and make your team play, your team composition compensate for what you know is an individual skill deficit. If you try and play the individual game, the lane games, the matchups, say, I can beat this, I can play better, going into a team who you should know or do know that's clearly better, you can't expect to come out with the win. You have to change your reliance onto your team strategy, into your macro level play instead of your micro level play. And unfortunately, that's not what Dark Passage did. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed another video analysis. I know this game was a little bit more bland than some of the others, but nevertheless, I hope you came out with some information and enjoyed it. Once again, I am Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and link to the portal page for all my 2014 notes and videos can be found in the notes of this video. Thank you and take care.